All right, guys, I've been asked to really pull back the curtains behind one of my companies. How did it originate? What was the challenges? What were the struggles? What were the successes? How did we pivot during different economic cycles? Personalities, teams. So I'm going to pull back the kimono and I'm going to give you a real look behind how Viking Capital was created and our race to $1 billion of assets under management. So let's begin. So for those of you guys who don't know me, my name is Vikram Raya. I'm CEO, co-founder of Viking Capital, and founded it with my buddy, Ravi Gupta. We had no clue what we were doing, to be honest with you. We had no clue that this is going to end up becoming as it is. We didn't think we're going to even have any employees. This was like a stupid side hustle that we did while we were physicians. So my background, I'm a cardiologist. I loved what I did. I had a lot of people in my family who had heart problems, and I wanted to help, and become a cardiologist. And while I was practicing, I thought, hey, wouldn't it be interesting if I had some income outside of medicine? So I was like, all right, let's do some single family homes. Did that for a while. Tried a strip mall. That was okay. But all these things really didn't, create exponential wealth for me. It was at most some trickles of cash flow, and, it sounded impressive to folks. That's when I heard this guy speak about multifamily and syndications and buying big buildings. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. More doors, more leverage, more power create more wealth. And it could allow me then to maybe cut back my medical time and practice how I want to, take more vacations, spend more time with my 2 young kids who are growing up, maybe allow my wife to not work so many hours as well. So that was the whole intention behind it all. And, we clue how to really start a business. I mean, there's the basic of starting a business, right? Get the LLC, go register that with the city, the state, whatever. Go get a logo, create a website. So that's where I spend so much energy and time. Little did I realize that has no bearing on the success of a true company. Really, you want to get sales, you want to get sort of a business plan, and you want to get operating as quickly as possible. So that's one of the biggest lessons that if I had to redo it again, I wouldn't have put so much energy and time into sort of the trivial things, and I would have focused on the things that would actually move the needle forward. But, it's interesting. So I sort of fell into having a really good partner. I didn't know this was going to turn out this way. I just thought, hey, he's a buddy. He likes what I like. I was into real estate. He was into real estate. His kid was in my boys' preschool class. We had some commonality. My wife was a doc. My wife was a doc. They happened to be some sort of friendly. And so I was like, all right, there's a lot of commonality together doing this business thing. He happened to be doing real estate. I happened to be doing real estate. So it made sense. But that was old school thinking. That was like me not realizing the power of partnerships and not realizing how this can make or break your whole trajectory for the success of a business, a company, or even a legacy. And thankfully, it worked out well for me. But in hindsight, it's because there's something called a DISC score. And once I really understood it, it has become one of my best benefits in hiring and building teams. But going back to my specific story, I wanted to build, I wanted to create, I wanted to grow. That is my mindset. So I'm what we call a DI, or in the DISC score. D stands for driver, decision maker, a person who is, hold on, let me turn off these notifications here so I can focus here with you guys. All right, let's go back into it. So a D is really a person who's a decision maker, a driver, a person who can sort of drive the company forward and there's a lot of maybe visions and ideas and creativity. And that the I part is they're really good with people. They can bring people together. They can, they have camaraderie, rapport. They can stimulate. They can lead, if you will. And an SC is a person who's truly detail oriented, right? They're going to the details, analysis. They can underwrite. They can look at complex documents. They can look into taxes, the finances, and things like that. So In retrospect, it seems like I was more of a D and I, while Ravi was more of an ISC. So he has a lot of people skills, but he's also very good with the details, which I am not good at. And this was so complementary in our success. So at the beginning, both of us started doing a little bit of everything. I was trying to underwrite my best, and I was trying to do business things. I was trying to talk to brokers and I was doing all that. He was also talking to brokers, talking to investors, but he was also looking at the details and underwriting as well. And pretty soon we realized my fortes, my superpowers, his fortes, his superpowers. And instead of overlapping, we decided to be very selective in how we spent our time in the company. And I think that is a big lesson for people who are starting out. You want to be focused on your zone of genius, on your superpower. I agree. At the beginning, you should know how to do all the different roles in your company. And it's important, especially if you're the leader of the company. But pretty soon, you want to bring on folks or you want to assign out to other folks who can complement your weaknesses and you focus on your strengths. So that's sort of the early days. Next thing is really like, coming up with a name for a company. We're of Indian background. We thought, hey, should we call it Saffron Capital or Cardamom Capital? But we were like, no, we want something, this is our testosterone kick. We're like, no, we want something strong. We want something robust. Let's call it Viking Capital. And so that's how we got our name for our company. So beginning, instead of us taking huge risks and trying to do deals on our own, we took a more mitigated route where we were able to get paid to learn. And what I mean by that is, in any business and stuff, there are ways where you can start to get started without taking on full-on risk. And in this case, while I was working full-time as a cardiologist, he was working full-time as a hospitalist, we decided to partner. Our company as a whole, Viking Capital, partnered with another syndicator or another sponsor, and they were doing deals. They were doing deals in Atlanta, which happened to be my backyard. I grew up in Atlanta. My parents are still there. I know Atlanta like the back of my hand. I went to high school. I went to college there. So we were familiar with the market. Number two, it happened to be an emerging market, which is good. So familiarity with the market. Number two, the fact that it was an emerging market and properties were accelerating in their appreciation. Number three, this group was who we're partnering with was operating out of Atlanta. So we're like, okay, three things sort of line up. And so, and the way we met this group is through the power of masterminds, conferences, boot camps, and things like that. So if you try to do things in a silo and if you try to do things in a vacuum, it's very challenging, very difficult because yes, I've had a lot of skill sets. I'm a physician, and similar to Ravi, but we didn't know this specific skill set of multifamily, of syndications, of capital raising, of asset management, of underwriting commercial multifamily properties. And so we learned all that through these conferences, through these mentorships and things like that. And then on top of that, we met similar like-minded people who happened to be maybe 1 year ahead of us, 3 years ahead of us, right? And creating win-win relationships is very important. So we ended up partnering with that other group and said, hey, look, we know one thing well. We know a lot of physicians around us. And so perhaps we weren't even sure because we hadn't raised any capital. We can bring capital to your deals. And they were excited about that because that was not their realm, meaning they were able to raise some capital, but they didn't have access to some of the people we did. So this was a win-win. They had a deal under contract. It was in Atlanta. We got excited. We were ready to go work with them. And, we were scared. We were nervous, but we took action. And so that's another learning key lesson. Act as if, take action despite. And, we could analyze the deal left and right. But in the end, we had to take a leap of faith that, will my investors lose money? Probably not. It's an actual real asset. We physically saw it. It's already performing well. It's just now we're going in and doing what we call a value add and improving to the next level. So after taking all these calculations, after going back and forth and mulling it over, we're like, if we make a mistake, worst case scenario, investors lose our money, then we'll work harder. We'll moonlight. we'll get some money from somewhere else and pay them back, and then lick our wounds, if you will. And so that's exactly what we ended up. And they said, "Hey, we need you to raise $500,000 for this deal." We're like, "Oh my god, I don't know, 500,000. That's a lot of money." Like I was only making $225,000 at the time, and Ravi was making something comparable. I'm like, how are we going to raise $500,000 from not only us but from all the people we know? I mean, I don't know, that seems like a large sum. But we like, all right, we'll do our best. We didn't even know how to present the deal, and we're like, all right, hey, we have this. It's spitting off this kind of returns, and we're doing X, Y, and Z to improve the asset, and in a couple of years we're going to sell it for a profit. And then we got barraged. It was not like, oh great, here's my money, let's go. We got barraged with, dude, what do you know about multifamily? You're a cardiologist. How can I trust you? How do you even understand what's going on? Like, what experience do you have in real estate? How do I know my money's safe? How do I know this is not a Ponzi scheme? And the questions went on and on and on. And so it was like, we're wondering, hey, should we stop this? This seems like a really stupid side gig we're trying to do. Maybe we just moonlight more and do some drug talks and stay being a doctor, right? And we're like, we decided, okay, let's lean on our partners. Let's lean on our expertise. And so we would say, hey, I'm getting this question from an investor. How do I answer that? And they would give us sort of, and so we would say it to them, and they're like, oh, that makes sense. And also for credibility, since I had a small little portfolio, Ravi had a small little portfolio, of deals already under their belt. So we'd say, hey, my partners and I have this kind of portfolio. And so we'd leverage the track record of someone else who are partners to get us some credibility. So that credibility was able to be transferred. And this is how everyone gets started, because every master was once a disaster. Every hero has an origin story. And so this was our origin story. Like, we have to show, hey, it's not just us doing it, it's us and our partners. And so at the beginning, the people who are going to trust you are probably inner circle. And what I mean by that is perhaps they're friends, perhaps they're their family, but these are people who know intrinsically that this is new and it's somewhat risky, but they trust you. And because they trust you, they're willing to take a risk on you. And that was good enough. And so we were able to raise not just 500, but we actually raised $750,000 for our first raise. And I still remember it was a 2015. And, we were so excited, and it was just such a cool thing. It was such a big deal. And, and that started our journey. So in these early days, this is how, we got going. But after about doing 2 or 3 of these, we came to another conclusion. This is where, do I want to stay on this linear path, or is there a jump I can make and go on to the next level of growth? And one big exponential growth, it was more like boom, take a step up, boom, take a step up, boom. That's seems to be how we grew, right? It was like these step ups that we would do, and then the path would be a little bit more, accelerated. And so we wanted to just do our own deals from start to finish, instead of us leaning on our partners, instead of just raising the capital and partnering on the asset management and other things. We wanted to do the thing from scratch. This was a big move, because at that time we didn't know it, but what we're committing to internally in our head is we actually need a full team eventually to do this. This is not going to be a side hustle or a hobby, but this may end up becoming a full-on business. To get to that next level of growth as a company, me and Ravi have to grow as business owners, business leaders, and our business acumen has to be improved, right? And we didn't know this inherently. We just said, oh, this is the natural growth. Let's just go for it, right? And this, not blindness, but this ignorance is sort of good as you're growing any company you're trying to do, because if you actually know every single step you have to take to get to the next level, you may not want to take it because it's so daunting. It's so overwhelming. If I actually knew to become a cardiologist for 26 years, I don't know if I'd start that journey. It seems like a lot. It seems like a lot of energy and a lot of time, but I don't think of it that way. I think about it, what's the next week require? What's the next 30 days? What's the next 60 days? What's the next 90 days require? And by living in these 6 month and 90-day sprints, you're able to create something monumental, something epic. And so back to where we are now. So we're at the point where we need to grow our company. We've hit some roadblocks of, hey, this is great, but the next level is there. And so we decided to part ways with our previous partners, and we declared in our minds and to brokers, hey, we are the full-fledged shop, let's go. And it was not until 18 months later that we actually were able to get our first deal. So imagine us slugging away, putting offers in, getting not accepted into the best and final, not knowing if this is too high or too low a price to pay. And even though it was a good market and it was a good time to buy, like we didn't know how to underwrite. We didn't know how aggressive or how conservative we should be with our numbers. Finally, after doing so many reps, we started getting feedback. We started, okay, you're starting to get close. And so, and the other thing we did was, this business is all about relationships. And what I mean by relationships is, probably so many people can do the deal, but who are they going to choose? And in this scenario, it was more of I guess it was a buyer's market, but it was a little bit more of a seller's market too. So you really had to have the broker's favor in order to be selected. And number two, you really had to be confident in your pricing in order to be able to pull off the deal. And so after about 2 years of working with a broker group, we finally got into the best and final round of a deal. And this was a deal in Atlanta, and it was 118 units. It seemed like the perfect size for us. At that time, I think we bought it for like $30,000 or $40,000 a door, which in this day and age is unheard of. And the numbers seemed to work out, and we put our offer in. What happened was, we were not the top offer. In fact, we were, I think, the second or third offer, and we ended up losing the deal. It ended up going to a group in New York City, and this group was very successful, very well, I guess, positioned in terms of equity. And and then 2 days later, after they got the deal under contract, there was a murder on the property. This property, mind you, was located in Atlanta, South Atlanta. It was a C-class property in sort of a C area, a B plus area, and this was shocking to them. They were like, "Oh, this doesn't make sense. I don't know, a murder on the property," and so they freaked out. And then they told the broker group, "Hey, we're out. We're not going to do the deal." And what happened then was, the brokers then went to I think the second group, who I think also passed, and then they came to us. And now it's your moment of decision. It's the moment of decisiveness and fate, and faith. You want to do this deal. Here are the situation. Yes or no. You have 24 hours to decide. Otherwise, we're going to go down the list. And so Ravi and I were like, what the heck do we do? Like, this is not the kind of ideal scenario for a first time, commercial multifamily property investment that we want to do. And we looked deep inside ourselves. Then we sort of, our medicine background kicked in. This is when we're like, all right, let's diagnose and come up with an assessment and plan, or a diagnostic treatment plan of what to do. So we talked to the police. We talked to the property management company on site. We toured the property. We looked at crime statistics. We looked at all this information, and we end up coming up with a conclusion. The conclusion was that this was a one-off event, and this is not the norm for this property. And so we ended up saying, "Hey, look, we'll do this deal, and if we need to have extra security for a couple of months, we will, or whatever cameras need to be put in, we'll do whatever it takes. But we'll reassure our tenants that this is a safe property, and we're going to improve the operations and the community feel, the safety of the property." So we went all in, and man, that was one of the best decisions we ever made. Because to fast forward a little bit, We ended up doing, operating the property, doing well, raising capital, getting the deal, our own property management company, improving the value of the asset. And then we realized there was a property next door that was a 62 unit, that was a fractured condo unit. And there was, there's dead dogs. Apparently there was apparently there's some prostitution that was going on briefly. And again, it was very concerning because even though our property was thriving, this property was bringing the value of our property down. And so we ended up, and that was relatively vacant, that property. So we had to beg, borrow, and steal, borrow money from friends and family, and do all these things. Ended up buying like we had to buy like 20 units at one time, and another 3 units, another 5 units, and 30 units. Ended up buying all 62 units. And the last guy we had to buy from, he knew that we had gotten like, I think, 61 out of the 62 units, and he held out. He's like, no, man, I want this price. I'm like, no, that's crazy, dude. We paid half of that to get the rest of the units. Like, sorry, take it or leave it. And we're like, dude, I told Ravi, let's just, if we can pull this off, this is all a rounding error. Let's just do it. So we went all in, got all of it. And I guarantee you, I lost some hair. I definitely gained white hair on that period of months, but we ended up buying all 60 units. Then we had to go and fill it up with tenants. Then we connected the 2 apartments together, the 118 unit and the 62 unit. But man, once we had all the pieces together, and it was all in harmony, and it was a holistic growth of that property. We bought it for about $5 million for that one, $3 million for this, $8 million total investment and buying the asset. We sold it for $13 million in 24 months. I think maybe 30 months, probably. That's when I validated the decision to go into multifamily. Was it hard work? Was it a lot of risk? Was it some moments of faith? Was it like, you're like, it's a Hail Mary potentially? Yes. But, persistence, dedication, leaning on team members, leaning on each other's partners, leaning on our families, our physical health routines, knowing we had a greater future that we were building, we went all in. And that was one of the fundamental reasons where we felt comfortable then saying, hey, this is something we want to go all in on. And it gave us a liberty to sort of practice medicine how we want to. And it unlocked us from the day-to-day grind. And I think it was just such a powerful experience. And there were a lot of times where we thought this was going to blow up in our face. There are a lot of times where we had people questioning us, other physicians saying, what are you doing? Friends and family worrying about us, but we stuck to it. It's still one of the better deals Viking Capital has ever done. And so I think that's a good place to stop right there. I'm going to do a part 2 on this, where I'm going to talk about some of the things that to really grow the company. And we'll get into some of the components that any business owner or person who's wanting to launch something, a multi-million-dollar company, will need to know to be successful. So catch the next video, and we'll talk soon. If you like this podcast, please hit subscribe or a thumbs up, and we'll see you next time.